Hey guys, tonight we're entering a garden that might not exist. But don't let that stop you. Picture this, vines hanging low with fruit you've never seen before, birds singing harmonies in languages lost to time, and a breeze so gentle it feels scripted. You're standing at the edge of Eden, or something like it. The Bible tells you Eden was planted eastward, which sounds specific until you realize east of what is never explained. The only directions you're getting are vague, poetic, and probably outdated. If someone gave you these on Google Maps, you'd walk straight into a river. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, where are you watching from? And what time is it for you right now? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step forward, Eden unfolds in slow motion, trees shimmer with dew. Somewhere nearby, a lion yawns without any intention of eating you. The Genesis account paints a place lush and orderly, a divine park where rivers flowed and humans first realized they were naked. Lovely. Mainstream scholars often say Eden is theological, not topographical, a narrative space. But fringe thinkers, they'll take you on expeditions. They've mapped it everywhere from Iraq to Tanzania to, no kidding, underwater. Historians still argue whether Eden ever had a real-world location or if it was always meant to be paradise on paper. Still, you keep walking just in case. You hear water long before you see it, a soft gurgling that somehow sounds ancient. Genesis says a single river flows out of Eden and then divides into four. That's not how rivers usually behave. Most rivers merge as they go, not break up like a group text argument. Still, you press on. You spot the first two names you recognize, Tigris and Euphrates. They still snake through Iraq today, watering lands that birthed empires and bored high school students everywhere. That's your mainstream historical fact. Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, thrived between these rivers. But the other two, Gihon and Pishon, they're either extremely extinct or hiding behind aliases. People have proposed everything from the Nile to rivers that dried up before camels were a thing. And let's not even get into the suggestion that one of them might have been on Mars. We'll save space theories for later. Yes, there are space theories. Historians still argue whether this four-river system was literal geography or symbolic language. Some think it represents completeness, north, south, east, west. Others say it was a poetic way of saying, this place had a really good irrigation system. You kneel beside the imaginary river, feeling damp grass that probably hasn't existed in millennia. The water's cool, clear, and deeply uninterested in helping you solve this mystery. You lean in. Maybe, just maybe, if you follow the river's back far enough, they'll take you to the source. Or you'll just get very, very wet. The air gets drier, the ground more golden. You step into Havilah, or at least where some say it used to be. Genesis describes it as a land rich in gold, bdellium, and onyx. Sounds like an ancient Etsy shop, honestly. Gold, at least, gives you a lead. Southwestern Arabia has been mined for gold since, well, forever. One of the most famous sites, Ma'd Dahab, literally cradle of gold. Some scholars think this could be the Havilah mentioned in Genesis. They point to old riverbeds picked up by NASA satellites, now dry, but once flowing, maybe even as the elusive Pishon. Fringe researchers love this stuff. You'll find theories tying Havilah to India, to Egypt, even to places that might have only existed in Bronze Age storytelling circles. Historians still argue whether Havilah was a literal region, a poetic reference, or just a flex about how good the resources were. You kick a stone, it glints for a second in the sun. Probably not gold, but the place has that vibe, ancient wealth, forgotten paths. A caravan might have passed this very way, loaded with frankincense, wild tales, and a guide who definitely overcharged. You wipe the sweat from your brow and glance back at the dry streambed. Havilah might not be Eden, but it knows something about what was lost. The ground under your feet softens, reeds sway beside you, a dragonfly skims past your ear like a tiny helicopter with ancient clearance. You've wandered into Mesopotamia. This is where things get serious. Between the Tigris and Euphrates, civilizations rose like sourdough in a hot tent. Sumer, Akkad, Babylon, names etched into dusty stone tablets and middle school textbooks. Historians point here when they talk about the cradle of civilization, and naturally, many assume Eden must have cradled nearby too. There's just one hiccup. Eden's rivers supposedly start in the garden and flow outward, but these two rivers don't start together. They don't even like each other that much. They just happen to be regionally famous. It's like seeing two celebrities at the same party and assuming they're siblings. Historians still argue whether the Genesis writer meant the source of these rivers literally, symbolically, or as a storytelling shortcut. Some even think the rivers in the story represent chaos, tamed by divine order. Quirky detail, some scholars tie Eden to Eridu, an ancient city in southern Iraq with temples, myths, and a suspiciously garden-like vibe. If Eden was ever a city, Eridu's got the resume. You crouch by the Euphrates and drag your hand through the cool water. Civilization may have started here, but if Eden was here too, she's kept her secrets well. The soil darkens under your sandals. You've crossed into ancient Kush, what some believe is today's Ethiopia or Sudan. Genesis says the Gihon River winds through the land of Kush, and you're here to see if Eden dipped a toe in Africa. The Nile flows nearby, elegant and moody. Some think the Gihon might be the Blue Nile, twisting through lush valleys before heading north. Makes sense, right? Big, ancient, sacred, but geographically, it's a stretch longer than a youth pastor's sermon on dating. Still, some Ethiopian traditions hold fast. Eden was here, full stop, no debate needed. Fringe theories even claim the Ark of the Covenant is hidden nearby. Why? Because mystery loves company. Historians still argue whether Cush in Genesis refers to East Africa, a now lost location in Mesopotamia, or an entirely symbolic name meaning far away and exotic. Please don't fact check. You step into the shade of a fig tree. Monkeys chatter nearby. The land feels older than any map. This doesn't scream garden so much as it hums it under its breath. Maybe Eden crossed borders, maybe rivers did too, or maybe we're all just trying to trace divinity with dusty boots and hopeful guesses. The heat presses in as you step toward the Persian Gulf, not onto the shores, but under them, because some believe Eden didn't vanish, it simply sank. It's called the submerged Gulf hypothesis. The idea? Thousands of years ago, before sea levels rose, the area now covered by the Persian Gulf was a lush river-fed basin, a perfect cradle for early humanity, and possibly a really nice garden. Satellite scans show traces of ancient riverbeds beneath the water. One even seems to connect to the now dry Wadi Batin. Some researchers think this could have been the missing Pishon or Gihon, or both, or neither, depending on how generous your imagination is feeling. Mainstream historians agree the region was fertile and populated long before the sea came crashing in. That's your solid historical fact. The fringe twist, a lost Eden, Atlantis style, now resting beneath 100 feet of salty silence. Historians still argue whether sea level rise alone could explain the disappearance, or if Eden was never here to begin with. You stand on the rocky shoreline and stare at the water, gentle waves, no signs, no answers, just the quiet suspicion that something very old is sleeping just below the surface. Stone beneath your feet now, worn, cracked, holy. You're standing on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, arguably the most spiritually overbooked real estate on earth. Jews, Christians, and Muslims all see this hill as sacred ground, but some believe it's more than sacred. It's Eden's final address. According to a few early Jewish traditions, the foundation stone at the center of the mount is where God began creation, where Abraham nearly sacrificed Isaac, and, according to one wild theory, where Eden itself once bloomed. It's a bold claim. There are no rivers here, no whispering groves, no convenient signage that says serpent crossed here. But the symbolism runs deep. Some believe the temple mirrored Eden's layout, a holy center, guarded thresholds, divine presence, basically Eden reimagined in stone and gold. Mainstream historians say the Temple Mount's sacred reputation came later, layered over time. But fringe scholars, they say Jerusalem was always sacred because it was the garden. Historians still argue whether this is archaeology or spiritual poetry with ambition issues. You touch the ancient stone wall, feeling centuries hum beneath your fingers. If this was Eden, it's traded fig leaves for limestone and incense. Dust kicks up as you wander south, deep into the Arabian Peninsula. You're in the land of incense, caravan kings, and maybe, just maybe, Eden's forgotten trail. Some scholars have linked Eden to ancient Arabia, especially around the Hadramaut region in modern-day Yemen and Oman. Why? Well, the area was once full of rivers, green valleys, and spice routes, and the name Eden sounds a lot like Aden, a port city nearby that smells suspiciously poetic. Mainstream historians confirm the region was once far lusher than today, thanks to a milder climate in the Holocene era. That's your historical anchor. But fringe thinkers take it further, suggesting Eden was an actual location on a caravan trail, its rivers now dry, its gold long looted. You imagine frankincense trees swaying beside the path, traders humming ancient songs. Maybe Adam haggled here for a slightly bruised fig. Historians still argue whether the linguistic tie between Eden and Aden is legit, or just a biblical dad joke that went too far. The sun dips lower, you sit on a warm rock and breathe in ancient spice and fading theories. Arabia may not be Eden, but it feels like somewhere God might have walked, briefly barefoot and curious. The stars are unusually clear tonight, and one theory is about to launch straight past them. You recline in the desert and consider the most fringe of fringe ideas, that Eden wasn't on Earth at all. That's right. Some ancient astronaut theorists suggest Eden was an extraterrestrial habitat, either a space station, a terraformed zone, or a gift from celestial visitors with a very advanced gardening hobby. Adam and Eve, maybe they were the original Earth colonists or lab-grown prototypes. Mainstream historians roll their eyes naturally. There's no archaeological evidence, and biblical Hebrew wasn't exactly fluent in aerospace. Still, a few point to curious phrases like cherubim with flaming swords as possibly symbolic of advanced tech. You're not sold, but the image of a security drone in angel cosplay is hard to unsee. Historians still argue whether these verses reflect metaphor, myth, or mankind's earliest attempts at grappling with the cosmos. You lie back on the sand, the stars blinking overhead. If Eden really was out there, somewhere beyond Orion's belt, then Earth itself may be the exile, not the origin, and that, oddly, makes the breeze feel colder. The air thins as you climb. You're tracing ancient footsteps up the mountains of Ararat, where Noah's Ark supposedly came to rest. It's a bit like hiking backward through the Bible, Eden to the flood, now trying to link the two. Here's the idea. If Noah's family restarted civilization after the flood, maybe they drifted from Eden, maybe they floated down from it, maybe Eden was upstream, literally and theologically. Mainstream historians confirm that Mount Ararat in modern-day Turkey has long been considered a sacred spot. Many cultures saw it as a mystical summit, and while no one's found the Ark, though plenty have tried with tape measures and lots of hope, it remains a symbol of divine reset. The quirky twist: some explorers claim to have spotted arc-shaped formations in the rock, usually followed by blurry photos and dramatic theme music. Historians still argue whether these formations are natural geology, wishful thinking, or leftover movie props. You pause, catching your breath, staring out across vast terrain, valleys, rivers, a world washed clean. If Eden's story ended in water, maybe the path back starts with a very long climb. You lie in the grass now, staring at the clouds, and start to wonder, what if Eden was never about longitude? Maybe it's not where, but what? Many theologians think Eden is symbolic, a story about innocence, boundaries, and that moment you realized fig leaves itch. It's a spiritual geography, not a physical one, a state of relationship, not a zip code. Mainstream biblical scholars often interpret Eden as Israel's literary parallel to a temple, sacred space, divine presence, guarded entry. It's structured like a holy place, not a picnic spot. But fringe voices still whisper, nope, it was real. You just haven't looked hard enough. Maybe it was both. A real place remembered through spiritual lens flare, or a metaphor with just enough mud on its boots to feel physical. Historians still argue whether the Genesis Eden account pulls from Sumerian myth, Egyptian temple symbolism, or a uniquely Hebrew worldview. You stretch out your legs, listening to birds chatter like old prophets. You're not closer to Eden, but for a moment it doesn't matter. You're here. The wind shifts. You feel it before you see it. A change in the air, like something's watching. You've reached the edge, the east of Eden. Genesis says God placed cherubim here, flaming swords and all, to guard the way back to the tree of life. Dramatic? Yes. Effective? Apparently so. No one's walked in since. You picture it. Golden gates, radiant guardians, maybe a divine do not enter sign glowing faintly in ancient Hebrew. It's both poetic and oddly terrifying. Mainstream interpretations frame this moment as theological exile. Humans cut off from divine intimacy, not just nice landscaping, but fringe thinkers suggest something more literal, that Eden was physically sealed, hidden, even cloaked. Think divine camouflage or a disappearing island trick, Eden as the original Area 51. Historians still argue whether the flaming sword imagery was symbolic, prophetic, or lifted from ancient Near Eastern temple lore. You walk a little slower here. The air feels charged, like a place that remembers being sacred. Or maybe it just doesn't want you too close. Either way, you step back gently, just in case the cherubim are still on shift. You follow a quieter path now, lined with tall grasses and whispers of old footsteps. Tonight's clue isn't stone or scripture, it's DNA. Some researchers believe that if Eden was real, human genetics might trace its echo. Enter the concept of mitochondrial Eve, a theoretical common ancestor of all living humans traced through maternal DNA. Mainstream science places her somewhere in East Africa, around 150,000 to 200,000 years ago. No fig trees, no snakes, just early humans trying not to get eaten by anything with claws. But the overlap is tempting. Some have tried to link the scientific Eve with the biblical one. And then there's the quirky twist. A few fringe theorists believe ancient human migration patterns line up suspiciously well with possible Eden sites, especially along old river systems and coastlines. Historians still argue whether these overlaps are meaningful or just coincidence dressed in a lab coat. You kneel beside a patch of wildflowers, imagining DNA strands curling like tiny scrolls, carrying secrets even Genesis didn't write down. If Eden left a trace, maybe it's been inside you all along. You duck beneath a low canopy of branches. It's tree time. The Bible doesn't name Eden's trees casually. The tree of life. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But what were they? Oak, olive, a pomegranate with trust issues? Mainstream botanists suggest the fruit might have been a fig. Adam and Eve did cover up with fig leaves after all. Convenient. Unless the tree was just nearby and not metaphorically important. Some scholars lean toward pomegranates or dates, based on the region's ancient agriculture. But the quirky theory that the fruit was psychedelic, a consciousness shifter, something that altered perception, opened eyes. Suddenly Eden becomes less a garden, more a cosmic retreat center with a very strict don't touch policy. Historians still argue whether the trees were literal plants, symbolic archetypes, or both. Trees show up all over ancient religious texts as bridges between worlds rooted in earth, reaching for heaven. You touch the bark of one nearby, it's rough, real, and strangely calming. If you had to choose between the tree of life and the tree of knowledge, well, you'd probably try a little of both, human nature and all that. Mainstream theology suggests Eden's importance isn't geographical, it's emotional. It's the idea of a lost innocence, a place we all somehow remember without ever visiting, like a childhood dream you wake up from but never quite forget. Quirky thinkers argue Eden still exists, hidden, protected, or waiting to be revealed. Some say we'll return to it someday. Others claim it was never meant for return, only reflection. Historians still argue Whether the entire Genesis account was inspired by real locations, stitched together myths, or divine storytelling genius, the debate is long, heated, and unlikely to end before bedtime. You lie back. Maybe Eden was a place, or a metaphor, or a memory the world keeps passing down in whispers, hoping one day someone will listen. The wind softens, the sky fades into a deep blue, stars blinking gently to life. You feel the warmth of the earth beneath you, like the planet is sighing with you. Eden's mystery doesn't press on your chest anymore. It floats beside you, harmless now, like a cloud too tired to storm. No more maps, no more questions, just quiet leaves and slow breath. You close your eyes. Whether Eden was real or not, something beautiful was planted deep inside you, and tonight it's enough to rest in that garden. Sweet dreams.